What if I told you that the adorable, harmless creature purring contentedly on your lap was once believed to be a direct emissary of the devil? That's right, we're talking about black cats. Their history is an absolute rollercoaster ride, from being revered as deities to becoming symbols of the darkest magic. Today, we'll embark on a fascinating journey through time to uncover how black cats transformed from sacred animals into the primary antagonists of medieval Europe. I promise you'll never look at these furry creatures the same way again. To truly grasp the magnitude of their fall, we must first appreciate the heights from which they plummeted. Our story begins in ancient Egypt, where cats were more than just domestic pets. They were cherished family members and even objects of profound religious devotion. They were revered for their ability to protect crops from rodents and admired for their elegant grace. The goddess Bastet, guardian of the home, fertility, and women, was often depicted with the head of a cat. The killing of a cat, even an accidental one, carried the death penalty. Can you imagine? Our story begins at the zenith of the feline golden age, a glorious peak from which they were destined to fall so dramatically. We journey back in time, under the scorching sun of ancient Egypt. Here the cat was no mere domestic animal, but a sacred creature, revered as a living deity. Central to this profound reverence was the mighty goddess Bastet, patroness of home, joy, fertility, and a fierce protector of women. Depicted as a graceful woman with the head of a cat, she was undeniably one of the most cherished deities in the entire Egyptian pantheon. The Egyptians believed cats were her earthly manifestation. In their watchful eyes they saw divine wisdom, and in their elegant movements a clear reflection of Bastet herself. Consequently, in every household, cats were welcomed with profound respect, and within the temples they were worshipped with offerings and veneration. They were living talismans, believed to ward off evil spirits and diseases from the family. This reverence was, quite simply, absolute. And this reverence didn't end with the animal's death. Quite the opposite, in fact. When a sacred cat passed away, its body would undergo elaborate embalming and mummification. This process was as intricate and costly as that reserved for humans. Imagine this. The entire family would be plunged into profound grief. As a visible sign of their sorrow, people would shave off their eyebrows and mourn the departed pet as deeply as they would a cherished human loved one. The mummified cats were meticulously wrapped in fine linen, adorned with precious jewels, and laid to rest in custom sarcophagi, some even intricately shaped, like a feline. Archaeologists have since unearthed entire necropolises, vast cemeteries containing hundreds of thousands of mummified cats. This unequivocally proves that the cat was far more than just a pet. It was revered as a guide to the afterlife and a sacred vessel for a divine soul, deemed worthy of eternal life alongside the pharaohs themselves. And what's truly fascinating is the perception of the colour black itself. For us today, a black cat is often seen as something ominous or a bringer of bad luck. But in ancient Egypt, it was quite the opposite. The colour black, or quimet as they called it, was the colour of life, not death. It was deeply associated with the rich, fertile black soil brought by the annual flooding of the Nile. This soil yielded abundant crops and, in essence, sustained the entire civilization. Therefore, black was a powerful symbol of fertility, rebirth, and protection, and a black cat, consequently, was believed to bring double good fortune. It wasn't just an embodiment of the goddess Bastet, but a living symbol of prosperity and well-being. There was no evil, no connection to darkness whatsoever. Quite the contrary, it was considered a powerful guardian against such things. Remember this point, as this positive perception would eventually become one of the first casualties in the coming war of superstitions. But how did these revered creatures journey from the sun-drenched banks of the Nile all the way to Europe? Their journey into the wider world was largely orchestrated by another formidable empire, Rome. The Romans were an incredibly practical people. They didn't see divine beings in cats, but they recognized something perhaps even more valuable: perfect, silent, and incredibly efficient killers. Their vast empire, with its sprawling cities, massive grain stores, and countless ships, was constantly plagued by rats and mice. These rodents devoured food supplies and spread disease, and this is where the cat proved to be an indispensable ally. Roman legionaries and merchants began taking cats with them on their campaigns and voyages. Thus, paw by paw, cats spread across the entire Roman Empire, from Britannia to the Middle East. Their status, however, had changed. They were no longer worshipped as gods. Instead, they were respected as valuable workers, guardians of the harvest, and protectors of the home. It was a step down from their divine pedestal, perhaps, but they were still firmly on the side of good. But as cats truly began to settle into their new European homes, not everyone viewed them merely as fluffy, four-legged pest controllers. This was particularly true across the ancient, mist-shrouded lands of the Celts, spanning modern-day Ireland and Scotland. It was here, within their ancient folklore, that a sinister shadow first began to fall upon the image of the black cat. Tales started to circulate about a creature named the cat Sith. It was said to be a massive black feline, often described as being the size of a young bullock, distinguished by a single white spot on its chest. This was no mere cat. This was a legendary being, a fey creature, whispered to have crossed over from the other world, and it was deeply feared. The cat Sith was believed to be a soul thief. Folk tales warned that it could snatch the soul of a recently departed person before the gods could claim it. To prevent this terrible fate, special vigils were held by the deceased body, designed to distract the fey cat with games and riddles. This marked, arguably, the first instance in European history where the black cat became associated not merely with magic but with something truly ominous. The seeds of suspicion had been sown, and this dark, ancient tale would later serve as fertile ground for far more widespread and terrifying beliefs. So how did we go from isolated, grim legends to such pervasive, all-consuming hatred? The catalyst for this transformation was the strengthening of Christianity in Europe. During the Middle Ages, the Church waged an aggressive and relentless war against any and all manifestations of paganism. Its primary objective was to eradicate old beliefs and establish its monopoly over spiritual life. And one of its most potent methods was what we would today call black propaganda. Everything sacred to pagans, their gods, rituals, symbols, was declared diabolical. Animals, which played a pivotal role in pagan cults, were among the first to come under attack. The cat, with its deep associations with goddesses such as the Norse Freya or the Roman Diana, became an ideal target. It was a living reminder of the old world, a world the Church sought to erase from human memory. Thus, from a revered symbol of fertility and protection, the cat began its dark transformation into a symbol of heresy. This demonization process was greatly fueled by the very nature of cats themselves. Unlike dogs, which were the epitome of loyalty and obedience, cats were fiercely independent. Their independence, their stealthy nature, and their nocturnal habits all sparked deep suspicion and fear in the medieval mind. Cats could see in the dark, move silently, and seemed to materialize and vanish like spectres. They resisted complete domestication, stubbornly clinging to their wild essence. In a world where everything unexplained was attributed to either divine or diabolical intervention, such behaviour simply couldn't go unnoticed. People began to perceive something supernatural in cats, but with a decidedly sinister twist. Their independence was interpreted as arrogance and outright defiance of God's divine order, and their nocturnal prowls were taken as participation in clandestine sinful gatherings. They were simply too enigmatic and too free-spirited for the age, making them an easy target for accusations. It was in this era that in the medieval imagination, the image of the cat became inextricably intertwined with that of the witch. A witch was understood to be a woman who had made a pact with the devil, renounced God, and in return gained supernatural powers. And much like her feline counterpart, she operated under the cover of night, was fiercely independent, and defied societal norms. This gave birth to the notion that a black cat was not simply a witch's pet, but rather her familiar. A familiar was conceived as a spirit helper, a spy from the realm of darkness, taking on an animal form. It was believed that the devil bestowed these familiars upon his followers to assist them in their witchcraft. And the black cat was ideally suited for this role. Its dark coat symbolized night and shadow, its silent movements suggested espionage, and its glowing eyes in the dark were often seen as demonic fires. Furthermore, it was widely believed that witches themselves could transform into black cats to covertly slip into homes, cast curses, steal infants, and commit other heinous acts. The sinister image of the familiar, a witch's spirit helper, became deeply ingrained in European culture, sealing the fate of thousands of animals. A black cat was no longer just a black cat. Instead, it was perceived as a disguised demon, a spy for Satan, living side by side with humans. Any solitary woman, especially an elderly one who kept a cat at home, whether to control mice or simply out of affection for the animal, automatically fell under suspicion. Her pet became the primary piece of evidence against her at an Inquisition trial. People were tortured, forced to confess that their cat was a familiar, that they spoke to it, and received orders from it. Conversely, if a black cat was seen in the possession of a woman accused of witchcraft, this was considered irrefutable proof of her guilt. Thus, love and affection for an animal transformed into a mortal sin, and the cat became a symbol of alliance with the devil. And then came the pivotal moment. What had previously been mere folk superstitions and whispered fears suddenly received official confirmation from the highest authority. In 1233, Pope Gregory IX issued a papal bull titled Vox in Rama, which translates to a voice in Rama. While this document was primarily directed against a burgeoning heretical movement in Germany, a few crucial lines within it would forever alter the fate of cats. The bull meticulously detailed the secret rituals of these heretics, and central to these dark practices was the black cat. The text explicitly stated that during their clandestine gatherings, cultists worshipped a gigantic black cat, believed to be the devil incarnate. They would reportedly kiss it under the tail as a sign of their unholy devotion to Satan. This was more than just an accusation. It was an official declaration of war. For the first time in history, the black cat was formally denounced as the embodiment of evil in an official decree from the head of the Catholic Church. This single act effectively gave license for its widespread persecution. The consequences of this papal bull were devastating. The decree served as a direct call to action for zealots throughout Europe. What had previously been isolated acts of cruelty escalated into systematic extermination. A relentless hunt for cats began, targeting black cats in particular. They were widely believed to be direct agents of the devil, needing to be eradicated for the salvation of Christian souls. The methods employed were utterly barbaric. Cats were routinely burned at the stake alongside alleged witches, drowned in sacks, and even thrown from church bell towers during festive occasions. This grim practice became a twisted form of popular entertainment, viewed as a pious act of purification from evil. This hysteria intensified, particularly during times of plague and famine, when people desperately sought a scapegoat, and the innocent, defenseless cat proved to be the perfect victim. Europe descended into a bloody frenzy, ruthlessly eradicating animals that had coexisted with humans for centuries. This brings us to one of the darkest and most chillingly ironic theories connected to this history. A popular, though debated by some historians, hypothesis suggests that the widespread slaughter of cats in the 13th and 14th centuries had devastating repercussions. By eradicating the rodent's primary natural predator, humans inadvertently created the perfect conditions for rats to multiply. And rats, as we know, were the primary vectors of plague-carrying fleas. Then, in the mid-14th century, the Black Death descended upon Europe, one of the most horrific pandemics in human history, claiming the lives of, by some estimates, up to 60% of the population. Of course, the extermination of cats wasn't the sole cause of the plague, but it's highly plausible that it was a significant factor that exacerbated its scale. It creates a horrifying paradox. In their attempt to banish the devil in the form of a cat, humanity may have inadvertently opened the gates to a very real hell on earth. It was in these dark times, steeped in fear and death, that a particular superstition was born, one that endures to this very day. If a black cat crosses your path, misfortune awaits. Today, we might dismiss it as a mere old wives' tale, but back then, it held a deeply specific and horrifying significance. To witness a black cat crossing your path was to believe that the devil himself, or one of his witch minions, had just traversed that very spot. It was a dire omen, a chilling sign that the forces of darkness were close at hand, perhaps even having already set their sights on you. People believed that encountering a black cat required immediate action. One should turn around and take an entirely different route, or better still, return home and make the sign of the cross for protection. This profound fear became so deeply ingrained in the collective consciousness that it outlived centuries. And even today, in the 21st century, many people instinctively spit over their shoulder or frantically search for a button to touch upon seeing a black cat. That's the lasting dark shadow of medieval hysteria. However, it wouldn't be fair to say that the whole world was against black cats. While in continental Europe they were often persecuted and even burned at the stake, across the English Channel in Britain, the situation was entirely different. Here, quite the opposite. A black cat was considered a powerful symbol of good luck. It was believed that if a black cat lived in a home, it would bring the family prosperity and protect them from misfortune. For an unmarried woman, being gifted a black kitten was a sign that she would soon attract many suitors, and spotting a black cat on the doorstep on your wedding day was a sure omen of a happy and long marriage. Black cats enjoy a similarly positive reputation in Japan. There, they are also considered talismans of good luck, especially for women, believed to help them find a good husband. This is a fascinating example of how the same animal can embody completely opposite meanings across different cultures, from a symbol of the devil to a bringer of happiness. Sailors, perhaps the most superstitious of all professions, held a particular fondness for black cats. For these men constantly risking their lives on the open sea, a good luck charm was invaluable. The black cat, in particular, was considered the ship's most vital guardian. First and foremost, they served a practical purpose, eliminating rats and mice that could spoil provisions or chew through vital rigging. Secondly, and perhaps more importantly, their presence on board was believed to guarantee calm seas and protect against storms. Even a cat's behaviour served as a kind of barometer. A playful cat meant fair weather, while a sneeze portended rain. So valued was a ship's cat that its loss was considered the direst of omens. On land, sailors' wives often kept black cats, convinced that as long as their feline companion was safe, their husbands would be protected from harm at sea. For these sea wolves, then, a black cat was far from a harbinger of ill fortune. It was a true guardian angel. Unfortunately, despite some positive portrayals in various cultures, it's the sinister medieval image that has proven the most enduring. Popular culture, especially film and literature, readily embraced and widely disseminated this perception. Just think of almost any fairy tale or movie featuring a witch. You'll almost certainly find a black cat with glowing green eyes right by her side. This stereotype is particularly prevalent during Halloween. Alongside pumpkins, ghosts and bats, the black cat has become an integral symbol of the holiday. Its image can be seen everywhere, on greeting cards, costumes and home decorations, and almost invariably it's depicted in a sinister, frightening way, with an arched back and a hostile gaze. Thus, from century to century, through books, films and holiday paraphernalia, this old superstition continues to live on, feeding irrational fear and distrust towards these animals. This centuries-old stigma has very real and heartbreaking consequences even today. Animal shelter workers worldwide are well aware of what's known as black cat syndrome. The statistics are stark. Black cats consistently have the hardest time finding new homes. They are adopted less frequently, spend more time waiting in shelters, and tragically, are often among the first to be euthanized. The reasons for this disparity are varied. Some people still subconsciously cling to old superstitions. Others find their uniform coats boring or unexpressive when compared to more brightly coloured or patterned cats. Additionally, black animals are notoriously difficult to photograph, which can make their online profiles on shelter websites appear less appealing or distinct. Their plight is particularly pronounced around Halloween, when some shelters even pause adoptions of black cats, fearing they might be taken for cruel pranks or rituals. It's a tragic echo of medieval superstitions, for which innocent animals continue to pay the price today. But thankfully, the pendulum of history has swung back. Today, we're witnessing a powerful movement to rehabilitate black cats. More and more people are recognizing the unfairness of old superstitions and intentionally choosing black cats as pets. On social media, hashtags supporting them are gaining traction, with owners sharing photos of their sleek black companions, highlighting how affectionate, playful, and beautiful they truly are. Special holidays like National Black Cat Day have even emerged to draw attention to their often challenging plight in shelters. People are actively debunking old stereotypes, proving that a cat's fur colour has absolutely no bearing on its personality or on good fortune. And as we see the happy faces of these mini panthers in their new homes, one can truly hope that their dark history is finally coming to an end. And now, for the most dramatic twist of all in this story, imagine an official document issued by one of the world's most influential organisations, essentially declaring war on an entire species. That document was the papal bull Vox in Rama, issued in 1233. This wasn't just popular superstition. This was an official decree explicitly linking black cats to satanic cults and the devil himself. Overnight, the cat transformed from a useful rodent hunter into public enemy number one. The repercussions were devastating. Across Europe, a mass slaughter of cats began. They were burned at the stake, drowned, and thrown from bell towers. The irony, of course, is that by eradicating the rat's natural predators, humans may have inadvertently paved the way for one of history's most devastating pandemics, the Black Death. Thus, fear and superstition, amplified by power, led to catastrophe. As you can see, the dark history of black cats is, in fact, a story of human fears, ignorance, and the struggle for power. The cats themselves, of course, are entirely blameless. They simply found themselves in the wrong place at the wrong time, becoming a convenient target, from goddesses to demons, and back to beloved family members. Their journey has been long and unjust. Thank you for watching this video until the end. If you found this interesting, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new fascinating stories. How do you feel about black cats? Do you consider them a symbol of good luck or bad luck? Or perhaps you have such a jet black pet living in your home? Share your story in the comments below.